Hey guys, welcome back to the Court of Random Opinion. My name is Neidigh. I still sound a little bit like shit, I guess, because I'm sick. So you're gonna have to excuse me for not being on the screen. I look how I feel and I sound how I feel. I am sorry I'm late. I was trying to get some more of the letters from the other people who had filed that did not show up on the docket. Because I feel like they worked hard on that, and I want to show them to you guys. But unfortunately, I only have mine and Leanne's. So we'll run through that, but I do want to talk about what happened today. Obviously, we got a ruling on all the motions to quash, as far as like the content creators who had filed. All of us, I believe, all of us who had the quash in that order had filed on our own, because none of us could afford the retainer fees for an attorney, and I don't think I would have taken one anyways, because I feel like that's bullshit. You should never have to pay huge hefty fines just for saying bad stuff about somebody on YouTube. That's ridiculous. But they were all obviously denied, and then the accompanying requests for protective orders and sanctions were also denied. Our responses to Blake Lively when she had tried to withdraw the subpoena and say everything was moot, none of those were even put on the docket, which I found interesting. We have like these crazy amicus briefs and like a YouTube fan letter, and like no salt to the YouTube fan of Popcorn Planet, but that's on the docket, right? And then all of all of Brett's letters, who's a non-party, are on the docket, and then like they choose to leave these off. So that's kind of odd to me. That is the most frustrating part of this, in response to like the denial. So I will be honest, I did not really expect this to go my way. Um, the attorney that I was talking to, he's been one of my best friends for a very long time. And I mean like a long time, since I was like a teenager, maybe younger than that. Um, and he said, it's probably not going to happen. But I thought that I should try anyways, especially given their withdrawal and what they said in the withdrawal. And I wanted to kind of challenge that narrative that they had met and conferred with us and that we had given them some information and they didn't need anything else. They made it sound like there was an exchange. They made it sound like we cooperated. um, the thing is, there was no meet and confer. I tried to schedule with them twice. Everybody's seen the email correspondence because I put it out there along with all my other business when I decided to do this. There was really not much more than that in the aftermath of me filing that motion to quash. They tried to schedule with me one more time. I said, I cannot schedule with you on the day of because I have a freaking day job and I'm not a lawyer. So we were supposed to meet today. And then, of course, they withdrew in the meantime. So then they made it sound like we had met and I had given them something, and then they decided to withdraw. And that's unfortunate because that's not what happened. And I decided to write that in my response, which is never going to be publicly known, right? So like all I can do is share this here, which I'm going to do, as well as Leanne, who sent me her letter. But that's what really bothers me, I feel like, is that they can put out this narrative that we somehow were involved in this and gave them something and backed off, right? And then they withdrew, because that's not what happened. She got scared. She had nothing. At the slightest bit of pushback, like a gust of wind, was enough to be like, no, never mind. We don't want this. Because how in the world is my backup email address and credit card number relevant to your litigation against Justin Baldoni? It's not. And unfortunately, people are only going to see the narrative that they've put out there. So, like I said, I will share that here today because it's not going to come out on the docket. Somebody says, why does it not appear on the docket? I don't fucking know. Doesn't matter, to be honest. I will move on with however things go, but I just want this to be over. And at this point, I gotta say, like, I don't think this lady is done with me yet, because I've said a lot of shit. And when I say I've said a lot of shit, I don't think it's the stuff I've said about her. I think it's the good stuff I've said about Justin that bothers her the most, to be honest. So I feel like that's why me. But we'll take a look at what I wrote to them, and I hate reading my own shit, but I got no other option right now, so I'm gonna do it. Hang on. All right. And writing to myself, like writing about myself in the third person, makes me feel like Steve Stifler. So I don't. There's no other way for me to put it. So I felt like a douche when I was writing this letter. Aside from the time I spent like deleting my apologies to the judge for wasting his time, but it is what it is. Also, give me 1 second. I gotta drink some water and blow my nose, but I don't want you to watch that, so it's gonna be kind of quiet for a minute. And I want to reiterate again, the denial of this request is not what bothers me because, I've got some honest advice that like this is probably not going to happen. What bothers me is that this is never going to see the light of day, and their counter that I somehow met with them and gave them what they wanted is going to be the official line. So, all right. Let's see. I'll skip over this part because we all know that shit already. This reply is necessary to address the issues that have not been rendered moot by Miss Lively's withdrawal or her response to Movement's motion, including a request for sanctions and a protective order. Miss Lively's subpoena targeted creators who have expressed unfavorable opinions about her online. The subpoena was not supported by any evidence. It served to intimidate, harass, chill constitutionally protected free speech, and threaten the safety and privacy of non-parties who are not involved in this litigation. Ms. Lively's counsel was largely unresponsive when Movin attempted to meet and confer or ask for clarification. And again, I showed that. They would go like a week without answering. And then, of course, when I filed something, they would be like, oh, yeah, no, we'll totally meet with you. And then they would disappear again. So Ms. Lively could not offer an explanation as to why Movement's location data, bank account information, or credit card numbers, among other random private information, were relevant to Ms. Lively's litigation. So I would ask, like, why, especially going back to May 2024, which is over a year ago now, and 8 months before I ever talked about this case, how the fuck are my financials relevant to that time in your life? So I had to delete that too. One sec. In Ms. Lively's July 26, 2025 response to Movement's motion, counsel wrote, based on the third party's representations made in meet and confers, public statements, and or information provided in their moving papers, there is no further information required from the subpoenas as to these specific third parties at this time. So that was strategically worded. Obviously, the parties that they met and conferred with were not people who had submitted motions to quash. They were people who had attorneys and who now have to deal with attorneys' fees that are very hard for them to pay for, who could kind of deal with the lawyers and say, like, this is bullshit. Because they backed off really fast. So, unfortunately, those of us who could not, or didn't want to deal with getting a lawyer and paying for it, had to go through all this mess. But the fact of the matter is, a gust of wind blew away their standing. So it's ridiculous. All right. Aside from 2 brief and fruitless attempts at scheduling, Ms. Lively's counsel was unresponsive to Movement for long periods of time. No meet and confer occurred. Movement did not provide Ms. Lively's counsel with any of the information sought by the invasive subpoena. So in the meantime, I did not provide my bank account information, credit card information, IP addresses, or anything of that, anything of that nature that they would be like, oh, no, we don't need this anymore. So I don't know what you're talking about. Ms. Lively's statement that there is no further requirement at this time, coupled with the fact that they did not receive any of the information sought, suggests that there may be further invasive and inappropriate discovery attempts made to obtain Movement's personal information and private data that is completely irrelevant to this litigation. This imposes an undue burden on Movement and serves to harass and intimidate Movement for her lawful expression of her unfavorable opinions of Ms. Lively online. Ms. Lively's response to Movement's motion states Ms. Lively's subpoenas were one part of the discovery process aimed at gathering information to link to the Wayfair party's activities to sources through YouTube and X content creator accounts. Okay, so my thought when they sent me that is the only explanation they gave me for anything, by the way, and it was a long time ago, And I'm just like, what does that have to do with me, though? I've never talked to any of these publicists. I've never talked to anyone involved in the alleged campaign as far as tag, which is they were accusing us of being on the tag list, which, they were bluffing. Wayfarer called the bluff. They de-designated that from attorney's eyes only, unsealed it, and embarrassed the shit out of them. But there are still people online who will be like, no, Lauren was somehow part of this conspiracy. Lauren admitted this, especially because I said, I emailed Brian Friedman's firm twice. Like, who gives a shit? So I asked for an email about Justin's, faith or whatever when he was getting flack for that online. I was like, listen, I'm not even going to ask about the lawsuit. I just want to talk about this and some positive stuff about him. Didn't hear back. Didn't expect to. And then the second time was like some weird technical thing on the docket that I didn't understand because I've never covered a case like this. So I was just, stupid. But they never responded again. So it didn't matter. And there are still people who will insist based on this statement that I was on the tag list. I don't know, man. I've never talked to any of the publicists here, but if that's what keeps you up in the morning or keeps you getting up in the morning, go ahead. All right. This is not a reasonable basis for Ms. Lively to demand Movement's private data. Movement does not have any affiliation with Melissa Nathan, Jennifer Abel, or any of the publicists who are parties to this lawsuit or alleged to have orchestrated an untraceable smear campaign. Movement has never interacted with them at all. In fact, Movement has spoken quite unfavorably about the publicists. However, the publicists have not elected to use our country's federal court system to retaliate by demanding Movement's bank account information, location data, and credit card numbers. These requests are unfounded and designed to chill constitutionally protected speech. So this paragraph was a lot longer before I removed the inappropriate stuff. But basically, most people who have been here since the beginning of when I was covering this know that I read the text messages between the publicists and I called them fucking stupid. It's like, dude, that's fucking dumb. Why would you write that on a work-related phone? Why would you type that to someone when you know your boss isn't like some sort of Stephanie Jones being the boss, when you know your boss isn't in some kind of manic spiral? Why, in a device that she can get back from you, would you write the stuff that they wrote? And so I did the same thing to them that I did to Blake that she's maybe so pissed about, which is I called them cunts. So I said, why are you such a dumb cunt for doing that? So it is what it is. But the publicists, like I said, have not elected to retaliate against me by using the court system to try to get my bank account information. It's ridiculous. Should I have said that about them? No. But I did. I'm not going to apologize for it either, but it happened. It's just, it is what it is. But if you're the type of person who has like a gazillion dollars and you see one person with at the time, less than 15,000 subscribers online calling you a bad name, you might have an insecurity problem. I'm just saying, seriously, move on. Do something else. Why are you watching me? Why are you listening to what I have to say? Why are you even aware of what I am saying about you? You're a mother of 4. You have everything in the world that you could possibly want as far as money and resources and fame. What are you doing? And even these publicists who don't have half of that are just like, yeah, whatever. So, Popcorn Planet just posted a video with his lawyers. Oh, okay, yeah. I'll have to watch that. Okay. To say that Movement may have been part of an untraceable campaign is also nonsensical. There is no evidence to support that theory, nor is there any truth to it. Movement's motion explains the basis for her unfavorable opinions of Miss Lively, and it does not involve a scheme with the Wayfarer parties. If Movement were somehow involved in an untraceable smear campaign, that campaign has failed obviously and disastrously, as Movement's thoughts and opinions are based on entirely traceable information. Movement has even demonstrated the process of obtaining this publicly available information multiple times, so the public may be informed of how to access it. And that's definitely true. So, all right. I won't get too much into these requests because obviously they didn't matter. But at the end of the day, what sucks, I feel the thing that I'm upset about is that they're making it sound like I met and conferred with them and gave them something. And now this is probably never going to show up and nobody's ever going to see that I said, hey, no, I fucking didn't. You know what I mean? But anyways, this was Leanne's letter. And then I'll go after this because I'm going to make this a quick one. Somebody help change the judge. I want to say this. I know people bag on the judge a lot, but as far as this ruling goes, with the protective order and the sanctions, like I said, the person that I trust very much, who's very smart and very good at his job, told me this was unlikely. So I don't want to say this is because there was a judicial bias or anything like that. I think it was just like this is kind of how it goes. This kind of thing. I'm a non-party. The subpoena was withdrawn, so my options are limited. I'm not saying the system isn't fucked for that. I'm not saying it wasn't used in an abusive way, because it absolutely was. I mean, she did this on purpose to intimidate people, which obviously didn't work because I'm still here saying you're a cunt. But she used this on purpose to intimidate people and to bankrupt them with lawyer fees. And at the end of the day, she had to back down before she could do too much damage, luckily. And we have a pretty good community of support that can help those who did have to pay attorney's fees. But if you have, like, so many pro se litigants, not even litigants, I don't know what you call that. If you have so many pro se people who are writing motions and you're just like, oh no, never mind, then you might not be standing on very solid ground. So that's just how I feel about that. So I'm not necessarily blaming the judge for this, you know. As far as the letters, the responses not getting on the docket, I don't know who to blame for that. I don't know. Because like I said, there was a fan letter that made it on here, and these aren't making it on here. So that's kind of weird to me. But I don't know the system as well as I'd like to. So I can't say that. I know lots of people are like, I am blaming them. I know, dude. I know. And I'm not going to, tell people what to do and what to think. I'm not going to tell people you're wrong for thinking opposite of me. It is what it is. Yeah. Oh, Leanne, I just got that. Give me one sec. I'll pull that up. That was good timing, because I was about to do the other one. All right. Jesus! 29 pages? What do you want me to do with... Oh my god. You write 29 pages? I can't read 29 pages right now. I'm dumb. What is this? All right, give me... Oh, it's got attachments, I see. Give me 1 second, I gotta drink some water. All right, she says just 3 pages. Okay, that's better, because I don't have the capacity to read 20-some pages right now. Let me close this, though. All right. And this is from our friend Leanne here in the chat. She helped us out a lot during all this, so heard you clanking around with that water. Well, I'm sorry. I tried to mute myself. Okay. Dear Judge Lyman, I'm writing to formally address the pending motion to quash filed 21st July 2025, because that's how British people talk, I guess. As of today, I'm aware that counsel for Ms. Lively have withdrawn the subpoena served on X Corp to obtain my data, and have written to the court to notify them and request the motion be denied as moot. I wish to formally object to Ms. Lively's attempt to render the motion as moot. The motion is not moot; it is unresolved. As your honor is aware, I like how you spell with the British spelling. I don't know. It's just I'm going to start doing that. My motion to quash Ms. Lively's improper subpoena to X Corp for my personal information. It's always going to be Twitter, dude. It's Twitter. I'm just calling it Twitter. All right. My motion to quash Ms. Lively's improper subpoena to Twitter for my personal information also included a request for protective order to prevent Ms. Lively from making any further attempts to harass me in this manner, mere months after proclaiming to continue standing up for any third party who was unjustly harassed. It also requested sanctions for filing a subpoena without any basis or offer of proof for doing so. Ms. Lively served these subpoenas, as is now attempting to walk it back by withdrawing them as if they never happened. That cannot be allowed to happen. Well, apparently it is. So that's unfortunately the world we live in. But here we are, The unwarranted backlash I received from this because of Miss Lively's actions, along with the stress and time consumed in being forced to address this issue, which has effectively wasted both my time and the court's time. This is sanctionable behavior. So we have, people that I don't have their words here right now, but we'll talk about it later. Who have written because one of our friends, she works in PR. And she's like, I can't have the damage to my reputation of being accused of being in a smear campaign. And then they just make it sound like, well, maybe we were involved, we cooperated, and now it's going to go away. Because that's going to do some serious reputational damage to her. I don't know. It's not good. Or like somebody who had one subscriber. It's just like, why am I being dragged into this? For me personally, I feel like I did enough to warrant her being mad at me. Do I feel like I deserved a subpoena? No. But I spoke it into existence because when everybody else was begging for a subpoena to build up their channels, I was like, I don't want a subpoena. And then, of course, I was the first person to get one of these social media subpoenas. So, I don't know, man. It just sucks. It does suck about all the backlash and all that she's talking about here. Because I know that everybody's struggled with that. I'm lucky to not deal with that as much as most. But it's still not fun, so... All right. There have been several events in recent weeks where Ms. Lively appears to have weaponized subpoenas to either harass and intimidate her critics or manipulate the PR narrative. On 1st July 2025, TMZ published a story that Ms. Lively had issued subpoenas for Andy Signor, Candace Owens, and Perez Hilton. The story was published before any of the people ever received their notice of said subpoenas. Around 9th July, it became apparent that Ms. Lively had issued subpoenas to Google for the data of 16 content creators. On 18th July, Ms. Lively filed a motion seeking to compel TAG to de-designate confidential AEO to their second supplemental responses and objections to her first set of interrogatories. So if you missed that whole thing, they were being very uncooperative with the meet and confer process with the 40-plus people they subpoenaed, or like they subpoenaed these social media sites for their information. And so Blake started to get some bad press for that, as she should, even though, she has the ex-CIA guy working her PR, and she has, all these news outlets who, like, she's with WME, and she has a very tight connection to Ari Emanuel, who was in charge of WME until recently. So, like, these bigger media outlets, they're not going to give a shit about this. They're not going to cover this. But then she started to get some backlash from Daily Mail and some, lower priority outlets. And so then, they started to freak out, like, okay, we should probably do something about this. So then they said, we can't properly meet and confer because and they used if a lot, they used apparently a lot. So if these people are on the attorney's eyes only list of content creators disclosed by TAG that they had communicated with at the behest of the Wayfarer parties, then we cannot properly meet and confer unless this is de-designated. And so they expected TAG to fight back on that because of their professional priorities, to not release those names. And the Wayfarer parties said, you know what? No, it's more important for us to delegitimize these claims of a smear campaign and that all these content creators are involved. So they unsealed all of that. And it came out, and there was only one person on that list of people who had communicated with them. And it was somebody, the communication was very vague. And it was Andy Signor, my friend from Popcorn Planet. And he had reached out for a request for comment, which is not part of a smear campaign. That's something you do when you're doing responsible reporting. So yeah, they went through all of that, and then they got embarrassed. And then, of course, when people started to push back after that, that's when they withdrew the subpoenas. To anybody, pretty much anybody who's giving any pushback, they're withdrawing. So, all right. When I filed my motion, I emailed a copy to Ms. Hudson. I received an email later that day to accept service and offer to discuss my motion. I was offered a Zoom meeting or to correspond via email. A Zoom meeting was arranged for Friday, 25th July. However, my disabled daughter was unwell and admitted to hospital as a result. I had to cancel a few hours beforehand. I suggested that the attorneys could use their now free time. Their now free time to respond to 2 simple questions I had in writing, an option which had been offered to me at the same time as the Zoom. All right. What is the basis for these subpoenas to Google, X, and TikTok? What are the reasons my name is on there? Well, they would never be able to answer that, honestly, because I don't know, Leanne. Do you ever call him a cunt? All right. I never received a response to my questions, and the next communication I received was to notify me that the subpoena had been withdrawn with no explanation for the sudden change of direction. The letter to deny the motion as moot filed by Ms. Hudson soon followed, and I was deeply concerned to see yet more misrepresentation in addition to what I had already highlighted in my motion. Ms. Hudson's letter refers specifically to 5 content creators, including myself. She suggests that her office has met and conferred with me. However, this did not happen as I had to cancel, and my email with questions remains unanswered. They never answered anybody as to why the hell is my name on this list. Because they can't. Because the answer is those people spoke badly about Blake Lively, and she didn't like it. It's the only reasonable explanation. And you can't just subpoena people and drag them to court for saying bad things about you. I'm sorry. You can tell your teacher if you want to do that, but you cannot take them to court for their lawful expression. That's not a thing. In the middle of her letter regarding us content creators and the motions to quash we filed, Ms. Hudson clarifies who coined the term untraceable digital campaign. It is not clear whether her comments are directed at us, but as one of the content creators the letter is referring to, I'm happy to respond to help clear up any confusion. Whilst I appreciate that the coin was termed by Melissa Nathan in one of the messages obtained by the Van Zandt sham subpoena, this fact had long been forgotten due to Miss Lively referencing the term on a loop in nearly Jesus Christ, Leanne. Miss Lively referencing the term on a loop in nearly every filing, on every docket related to this action across multiple jurisdictions. Speaking for myself, I simply assumed that Miss Lively had taken authorship of the term. I think counsel for affirming its true origins. Jesus. Okay. Miss Lively concludes. Just give me a second. I need water. All right. I'm good. Ms. Lively concludes her response to the motions to quash by making a misleading statement, claiming to have met and conferred with me. The email in Exhibit B shows that was arranged but canceled due to an emergency. Did I read this already? I don't think so. All right. But the alternative communication method was ignored and no attempt was made to offer an alternative time. Ms. Hudson does not state the meet and confer was attempted. She states it took place as a fact. Meet and confers took place with content creators who were not referred to in her letter, a detail Ms. Hudson has neglected to make clear. Ms. Lively also states in her letter, based on third parties' representations made in meet and confers, public statements and or information provided in their moving papers, there is no further information required from the subpoenas as to these specific third parties at this time. Ms. Lively has therefore withdrawn the subpoenas as to them. That is some stupid fucking bullshit. This statement gives the false impression that the subpoena for my data was withdrawn because I and the other content creators gave Ms. Lively information. I certainly did not, as there was nothing to give. I don't know. Did anybody else give out their credit card numbers to these people? Because I totally did. All right. The voluntary contact I made to Wayfair Counsel was my own choice, without prompt, request, payment / incentive, and received no response. They left us on red. All right. Therefore, it does not come close to being described as a smear campaign. The insertion of "at this time" suggests that the door is being left open to attempt this again in the future, alternative account, or myself personally. And this is exactly what I sought a protective order to avoid. I emailed to clarify and was advised the subpoena has been withdrawn in its entirety as your account. Confirm that we do not intend to renew this subpoena as to your account. The wording is vague and offers no assurances that I will not be dragged through this farce again in the future. The fact that Ms. Lively served a multitude of subpoenas that appear to be procedurally flawed hinted at bad faith. She has now withdrawn the ones that have been challenged with no explanation or apology. I mean, that lady's never going to apologize. I mean, what the fuck? Not unless big media grows some balls. All right. She has not attempted to explain to me or the court why she embarked upon this disastrous course of action, and she cannot because it is inexplicable. There was no basis other than to annoy, harass, and inconvenience predominantly female content creators who did not rush to adulate her. All this action has done is expose the basis for Miss Lively's decision to serve subpoenas on content creators selected at random. Her amour propre. I had never heard that term before. I don't even know if I'm saying that right. Hang on. Yeah. Like, I know what it means. I just don't know how to say it. I know there was another word you were going to use there, but you didn't. So, there is an abundance of case law which confirm the improper and bad faith subpoenas issued under FRCP 45. Clearly, subpoenas are being issued with no genuine purpose other than to serve as a PR prop and claim a false narrative that I gave information and was part of a smear campaign. I've already referred to 3 subpoenas where the notice was provided by a TMZ leak, and the entire contents of Van Zandt ended up in the New York Times. I'm not here to be used as a PR spin to cure Miss Lively's disastrous image woes. I respectfully request the following relief from the court. 1, enter a protective order barring a reissue of any subpoena for my data on any platform to anonymous or non-party individuals without court leave. 2, award punitive damages as a sanction for abusive process. And 3, grant any other relief the court deems just and proper. Oh, man. Look, this whole thing is crazy. Like, I've never been subjected to more online scrutiny in my life. I'm just kind of like, this is nuts. So I feel where you're coming from, where they're like, they're trying to say I was part of a smear campaign, because it's really hard, because there are like diehard cultist fans of this case who are like really mad at one side or the other. And even when somebody doesn't agree with me, I can put my, emotions aside to be like, okay, well, they really believe what they're saying. I understand that they are doing what they think is right. But when it comes to like the opposite, like people just attack me for the most random things. Like I had somebody pull up some like 10-year-old articles I had written when I was like in my early 20s. And they were like op-eds about my swimming and there was like some lame thing that I wrote, like this really lame thing that I wrote that was like to my future wife or whatever. And that's the most embarrassing thing ever that I can't delete now. And they're like, she's a media parasite. I was like, what do you mean a media parasite? I forgot that even happened. I'm just sitting here talking to people. Like, what is your problem? So, no, I get it. There's people out there who now think that we're like the devil, and part of some sort of evil smear campaign. And it's crazy, but at the same time, I understand why. I understand the reasoning for the denial. But it's disappointing that these things wouldn't even be put on the docket to show, like, no, there was no meet and confer, at the same time. So that's a bummer. And I don't know why that is. I couldn't really explain it. All I can say is I tried my best. So I'll try to focus on the fact that this lady is not getting what she wanted from me, which I don't believe was my bank account information. I believe it was just to intimidate me out of speaking, which is not going to happen. I don't think she's done. I don't think she's done by a long shot. She's represented herself as a person who will go to great lengths to punish people who she feels have wronged her. So I can't say that I feel relieved too much at this point, especially since I basically invited her to depose me. But I did what I did. So we'll see how it goes. All right. Personal subpoenas next. Yeah, man. Look, if it happens, it happens. I'll deal with it. But they're not going to get anything from me except more embarrassment on both of our parts, to be honest. So, because I will put everything out there. I'm the first person to tell people when I do something wrong or embarrassing or whatever. So if this lady thinks that I won't embarrass myself just to disprove her claims, she's got another thing coming. So we'll see what happens, but I'll let you guys know. Amy Shepard, thank you for the $5. I'm so sorry. Our community will defend, share the truth, and support you all. Thank you very much. Texas Rules, thank you for the $10 super sticker. And John Min, thank you for the $50. Wow. We are with you. Thank you very much, dude. Appreciate that. All right. I got to take off because I'm starting to lose my voice a little bit and I need a nap. Yeah. So I might be back later tonight. We'll see. But I might be too tired. I'm going to just hang out and watch TV and shit. So I'll talk to you guys soon. Thank you everyone for being here. And oh, I'm gonna hang on. Wait, I want to show you something first. Some of you guys might have seen my friend on my YouTube channel recently, but this is my friend Rachel. She's really cool. You should go and give her a follow. Let me do this real quick. All right, she's just like the best person, man. So let me put this in chat. Go follow her there. She's helped me out a lot, just in general, just being her friend. So I'm gonna pin this. And then hopefully we'll have her back soon to talk about some of this stuff. But in addition to Omar, she's been a really, really great person to me. So just wanted to throw that out there. And I will see you guys soon, okay? Thanks. Bye.